Hello guys and welcome to my channel. My name is Ijoma Fab. So today I'll be taking you on the sewing process of how I made this beautiful gown. So I made this beautiful gown using this Ankara fabric here. So let's get started. So I'm going to start off by cutting the lower part first. So the lower part of the gown. So I'm going to fold diagonally this way to achieve the length I want to work with. So if you want to achieve a shorter length, you can go ahead and fold with a 180-degree flame. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to take the length of the gown. So I want to work with the fullness of the gown. So I'll be starting my measurement from the down part of this gown. So I'm going to rule a line straight this way to make sure I have the accuracy I want to work with. So from this line here now, I'll be taking my measurement upwards. So the measurement I'll be working with is 60 inches for the gown. So the half length is 16 inches. So by the time I take away 16 inches from 60 inches, I'll be left with 44 inches. So the lower part of the gown is going to be 44 inches. So I need half inch to add to the upper part for the sewing allowance and 1 inch to add to the lower part for the hemming allowance. So that will give me 1.5 inches in total. So 44 inches plus 1.5 inches will place me at 45 inches. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm marking 45 inches upwards this way, and I'll be doing the same thing on this side too. So placing my tape on 45 and half inches upwards. So I'll mark it this way. So the next thing I'll do now is to connect. So after connecting, the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark the bottom placket. So the bottom placket I want to make use of is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead and mark it straight down. So after marking the bottom placket of 2.5 inches, the next thing I'll do now is to connect. So we have our bottom placket done. So on the waistline here, I'm going to mark the hip depth. So the hip depth I want to work with is 9 inches. So because I need half inch to join to the upper part of the gown, I'm going to step down by 9.5 inches. I'll repeat the same thing here. So I'm marking the hip depth just for guide. I need this to work with. So on the waist here, I'm going to mark quarter of the waist measurement starting from the bottom placket line. So the quarter of the waist measurement I'm working with is 9 inches plus 1 inch sewing allowance. So that's 10 inches. So from the 10 inches, I can connect straight down. But before I do that, I want to make sure that what I have on this hip length is going to take care of the hip. So what I have here can accommodate the hip. So I have about 13.5 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect from the waist straight down. So now after connecting from the waist straight down, the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut this all out. So after cutting out, this is what I have. So I'm going to use this now to cut out the back piece. So before I do that, on this bottom placket, I'll be folding it inwards with my pin. Then I'll use this to replicate the back. So I have the back panel here and I marked out my zipper allowance of 1.5 inches. And also this is the side. So the front panel is on top of the back panel. I'll cut this all out also. So after cutting, the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do now is to cut out the pocket. So I have this fabric on fold here. I'm going to place my hand this way. So this is going to give me 2 pockets. So I'll be needing 4 pockets. So I'll use this to replicate 2 more. So I'm just going to curve like this, placing my hand this way. So just follow what I'm doing. And this is what I'm going to cut out next. So when you're cutting your pocket, you have to make sure that the opening at this end is about 8 inches. So by the time you're done sewing, you have about 6.5 to 7 inches so that the palm can pass through. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to cut this out, and I'll use this to replicate 2 more. So after cutting out, the next thing I'm going to go ahead now is to attach the pocket. So I'm going to attach the pocket right side facing the right side of the fabric. So I'm stepping down from the waist by 2 inches. So I'm going to place it this way. So the right side facing the right side of the fabric this way. And I'm going to go ahead and sew down with 1 inch sewing allowance. So I'm going to do the same thing to this other side, and I'll show you how it looks like. So after I was done sewing, this is what I have. So this is my back panel. So I went ahead to top stitch after sewing, and I gave it a good press. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to work on the zipper side. So I'm going to run a loose stitch to about 8 to 10 inches here, and after then I'll close up the back side. So after closing up, this is what I have. So opening up, this is how the back looks like. So the next thing to go ahead and do now is to close up our skirt. So I'm going to introduce the front part of the skirt to the back part of the skirt. So I'm going to place it right side of the front panel, facing the right side of the back panel this way. So watch what I'm doing. So place it carefully like this, and the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to run a stitch from the top with my 1 inch allowance, going around the pocket with about half of an inch all round, coming out this way, and I'll continue with my 1 inch sewing allowance all the way straight down. So after I'm done, I'll repeat the same process to the other side. So I'll place it the same way, right side facing each other, run my stitch of 1 inch, go around the pocket and straight down. So after sewing, this is what I have. So this is how it's looking like. I went ahead to also give it a good press. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to work on the button placket. So for the button placket, I went ahead to also give it a press for it to be easy for me to work on. So remember that the button placket is 2.5 inches. So I'm going to go ahead now and fold in 1/2 inch inwards this way. Then after folding 1/2 inches inwards, I'll be left with about 2 inches. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to also fold it into 2. So when I fold it into 2, I'll be left with 1 inch. So the bottom placket is going to be 1 inch. I'll take it to the sewing machine and sew it straight down. I'll repeat the same process to the other side. So after sewing, this is what I have. So this is how the bottom placket looks like. I also went ahead to give it a good press to make it lay down flat. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark where I want my button and the buttonhole to be. So considering that I will need to attach the upper part to the lower part, I need to leave some space to attach the button. So I'm going to step down with about 3/4 of an inch or half of an inch, so that it doesn't interfere with the joining or with the button. So from this marking, I'm going to place my tape there. So that's where my button is going to start from. So each spacing for my button is going to be 4 inches. So this is the first marking, second and the third. So I'm going to continue until I have 8 markings. So my button in total is going to be 8 in total. So once I'm done, I'll repeat the same thing to the other plackets. So one is going to be for the button, the other is going to be for the buttonhole. So they have to rhyme. You need to be careful while doing this. So for the lower part of the skirt, I'll be leaving it just like that. I'm not going to attach any button to it or any buttonhole. So what I have from there to the end is about 16 inches with my sewing allowance in total. So I'm going to go ahead now and attach the button and the buttonhole and show you how it looks like. So after attaching the button, this is how it looks like. So this is what I have. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead and do now is to attach the upper part to the lower part. So for the upper part, you could go ahead and use any top of your choice. You could use a waist dart, a princess burstier, or a princess dart. So for me, I'll be making use of this blouse. This is a princess burstier. So I have a video up on the channel on how I made this. And for the sleeve, I also have a video up on the channel on how I made this. So I'm going to go ahead now and join the upper part to the lower part with half of an inch. So before I join the upper part to the lower part, from this button here, I'm going to sew up down to this button. So I'm just doing this so that there wouldn't be any opening when I sit or I wear it. So after sewing, this is how it looks like. So this is the final look of the gown. I also went ahead to hem the lower part of the gown. So this is how it looks like, and this is the finished look of the gown. I also went ahead to fix the zipper at the back. So this is how our gown looks like. So I hope you enjoy this. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.